Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We're loaded up and room for you as well. We'll spend time with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, get his pulse on the rest of the Big Ten, the Nebraska football team as they head to Rutgers on Friday. Reminder, come see us at the Hail Varsity Club Friday night, 4 to 6, right in front of kickoff in La Vista. We'll be on there for a road show and then a post game. Hang out, watch the ball game, see if Nebraska can say 2 in a row. So Mitch Sherman in hour 1. In hour 2, longtime assistant coach at we'll say Iowa State and Washington State, the gentleman, Jim Walden. Get his perspective. Longtime coach for Bob Devaney. Get his take on things in hour 2. And then Travis Vokolek, our sit-down with Nebraska's senior tight end yesterday. We will hear from Travis Vokolek before we say goodbye. Numbers to get in. Can join us today on Hail Varsity Radio, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Can tweet at us on the show at Hail Varsity Radio. That's at H Varsity Radio. Can find and follow us on Twitter, Chris Schmidt at Schmidt_radio, Elijah Herbel at Herbal Essence. And always watch us here in the stream on ESPN Lincoln's Twitter handle, on ESPN Lincoln's Facebook, and can also watch the show on the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle at H Varsity Radio. Well, it's a short week. We'll hear from Whipple and Busch here in a little bit. Nick Saban is got his sleeves rolled up for Aggie Land and then Tennessee. He's in midseason I hate the media form, so St. Nick will explode. But I thought Whipple was pretty interesting. And you know what? You don't go to your coordinator post-media sessions all the time wanting to be the talk of it. You want to be informative, let folks know what's going on, and away you go. But this whole new look Nebraska has been very, I don't want to say edgy, but rough and tough.
Well, my takeaway from Whipple today, and I think what made it so entertaining, was he cut out all the BS. It was straight to the point, no coach speak. It really felt like you were getting his unfiltered view of things today, where, I mean, he talked about the fact that he doesn't think this team necessarily thinks that they can compete for a Big Ten West. He talked about how that's part of changing the mentality. I don't think that's something you would have heard out of him a couple weeks ago. It just felt like he cut out any BS, got straight to the point, no coach speak. It was just, this is what's on my mind. I'm going to answer the question exactly how I feel right now.
If we're going to see a successful season for Nebraska, successful being bowl eligibility or better, okay, and that's what Whipple touched on today, why just hope you limp into a bowl game? I'm paraphrasing. We'll hear the exact quotes here in a moment. Aim for the sky. Reach for the stars, right? Not to go, but his frustration has been that he has higher expectations than some of the guys on the team. And it comes back to mentality. Yes, you've changed head coach. Yes, you've changed coordinator. But I think overall here with Mickey and some of these newer coaches in charge, mixed in with some of the older coaches, is you have a change in leadership style, okay? And you have a change in leadership style. You have that. You've always had that from a coordinator standpoint, but now you're seeing a very demonstrative, demanding offensive coordinator. It's not hugs and being bros. It's, dude, this is what I'm asking you to do. Go do it or else. And we've hit on the accountability part, but it also bleeds over into the mentality. And all of these guys that are on staff still and now in newer positions are uber ultra competitive. They want to win. They hate losing. And that's how it's always been, or it should be, but now it's being demanded that, listen, if you give your best and it isn't enough, so be it. But you can look yourself in the mirror. That sort of take. Well, they're being pushed and demanded to do things that coaches see and believe they can do. And they're going to get coached up to the best of the coach's ability to go execute that. And these guys are true teachers. They want to teach and get guys to perform. More from Whipple in the post presser today.
In my history, when I walk around being a nice guy, it just doesn't work as well as when I'm a okay? I don't know why, and that's just what I told the kids on Monday. I said, look, man, I'm down here. Just when I have something across my rear end, guys, we just play better, and that's really what it was like at halftime.
He didn't like how things were going, right? You had a great drive to start, and then you went a bit dormant, and that's how it's been with Nebraska. They'll open up typically drives to start the game, and in the second half, be on fire, and then they'll go dormant for a while, and then they'll find some rhythm. Nebraska did that in the fourth quarter with 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns. That's the good part. But he wants him to be perfect. Well, you're never going to be perfect, but be really, really good. And if he's going to be a jerk, didn't use that word, but we're going to edit selectively today. And for him, if he's going to be a jerk and grumpy and grouchy and demanding, guys will respond, or he'll find somebody who will. And that's just the way things are. It's not that there hasn't been benchings before in Lincoln with Frost, but there was hesitancy to move on. You've seen changes in the offensive line, okay? You've seen quarterbacks get pulled, and you see guys who haven't been practicing not playing. Right? I mean, case in point, and I don't know, I assume Omar's been practicing more, but you saw a lot of Omar selectively last year. Omar got in some key spots a year ago, right? Oklahoma against Michigan, had big catches, and it's been kind of hit or miss with Omar in the practice field, and he's detailed that, but you're not seeing much of Omar on second team or first team this year, and his talent levels up there when he's healthy. But there's a standard you got to reach, and there's a certain level of accountability that now exists in this football program for everybody, and that's key. And that's Whipple's going to hold himself accountable, and he's going to walk around being grumpy and a jerk to get out of what he needs to get out of guys. And you got to know who can take it, who responds, and how to button push. And he's seen enough football to know how to do that. And I think he's got a comfortable relationship. They may not like him at times, but I think they respect him.
Well, that's what it almost sounds like the thing is with Casey Thompson, where Mickey went up post-game Saturday and said, well, we wanted to get the guy some experience. But you've heard a different tune from both Casey and from Whipple, where Casey gets up there and says, yeah, I mean, I had to get to the sideline and say, man, I was 8 of 9 leading into this point, and I make one mistake, and now I'm sitting on the sideline. Like, I was frustrated with that, and me and Whipple talked about that on the sideline. You also hear Whipple saying, well, we expect better from our starting quarterback, and he needs to know that, which is a bit of a change of tune, and that's what I think I was getting at the start of this segment, where I said that's what made this media spot so refreshing, is there wasn't any of that BS, that coach speak, that playing politics with the media. It was very straight and to the point, and this is what I saw, this is how I felt, this is why I did this, and I'm not going to sugarcoat anything.
Well, and the point is, hey, good work going 8 for 9. You should be 9 for 9, and you missed a touchdown that would have made you 9 for 9. You're holding the ball too damn long. Mm-hmm. I didn't have Whipple bugged up, but I can kind of feel how that conversation went. More on the decision to pull Casey from the OC.
Probably like Spurrier said to Danny Werfel, he said, hey, I'm not mad at you, Danny. It's my problem because I put you in the game. So that basically is the same thing there. It's like you can't miss that chance for a touchdown with Cray's running wide open in that situation. And so, as I said, he bounced back, and I got to coach him better. My frustration, that part, I got to coach better. That's, I'm pointing the finger at myself, and So, as we said, the season's, we're almost halfway there, and like I said, we got a chance.
That's true. It's not smoke. You have a chance, and this is far from settled in the West. Here's the lesson, right? You as a Nebraska fan want to see the Big Red make a play on 3rd and 2, early in a ball game, late in a ball game at some point, a 3rd and 2 where you have a chance to hit a guy and score a touchdown or get a big gash play. That will be a difference. Nebraska's ability to flip out of this tailspin partly is going to come through their offense and quarterback play. You got a guy who's really talented throwing the football when he's got time to do so and in rhythm, right? Well, yanking a guy after he misses a 3rd and 2 to Palmer lets him know that don't miss it again or else, and he's got to be able to be strong enough to bounce back from it. Casey absolutely seems like that type of dude, and he highlighted that yesterday, just as hard of as coaching as he's had in his life going back to his dad. He highlighted through, Pee-wee football when he was, 6, 7, 8 years old. His dad coached him hard. So there's a thick skin with Casey Thompson. He can take it, but that's going to be the difference against an Iowa. Could be a difference Friday night against Rutgers, against Michigan. I mean, you got to make those plays and hit a guy that's open. And I'm not piling on Thompson here. I mean, that's the point that Whipple's driving home with the yanking and with why he's so demanding with his quarterback play in the offense.
Well, and part of this is knowing what kind of athlete and what kind of person you have back there as well. Look at Casey's history. Whenever adversity has struck him and he's felt that someone has slighted him, someone has underestimated him, someone has called him out wrongly. I think back to last year with Texas where he didn't start the year as the starter, and then as soon as he got his chance to become the starter, he goes and balls out. He's the type of guy who bounces back from that sort of thing. Like, oh, you want to bench me? I'll prove you wrong. That's what type of guy he is. Now, I'm sure not everybody in the offense responds like that, and that's, I'm sure, what Mark Whipple is working through right now. How do I push these guys' buttons in the right way? But I think he found that. Looking back at Casey and what he's seen with Casey through his couple months here working with him is that, you know what, Casey's a guy that if I bench him for a series, he's going to come back and respond even better. He's not going to get out in the field and sulk. He's not going to get on the field and have self-doubt. He's the type of guy who's going to respond. And I think that's what we're kind of hearing here is that Mark Whipple wasn't worried about what Casey was going to do after he pulled him.
No, he was worried about the team scoring points and being better.
Exactly,
now,
and he knew Casey would be better after he got pulled.
Well, it blew up in their face, too. Like, let's okay, it's great to hold guys accountable, but know your personnel, know the situation. And maybe he's seen Chubba come in the shadow of his own goal line and perform in practice. Well, that didn't work out well at all for Nebraska with the pass play. They needed to burn the clock, run it out, just get to halftime at that point after the way the first half ended, momentum was gone, right? And what sparked Indiana was that strip sack in the end zone for a touchdown. The West, though, the bigger picture, the topic, the goal is to win the West. Whipple very blunt with what he thinks about his offense and about this football team. What are their chances to go far in the West this year?
For this offense, it frustrated me, and because there's been, I think, 4 games we've taken the ball and scored the first drive. And then they just act like, well, yeah, okay, I'm like, we don't, nothing against our defense. We don't have this 86 Bears defense, okay? Your job's to score touchdowns. And it's just like, you go 3 plays or whatever, we go 70 yards, and then you just start making mistakes. So, and my frustration a little bit was taken out on Casey, but he knows that. I love him, and that part. And I think you can't do that with everybody, but he handled it really well, and he responded. He responded, and the team responded in the second half. But that's my expectations just seem at times to be higher than our guys that are playing, and that's frustrating. I was happy with the way we finished, and then I told them on Monday, look, all right, hey guys, this is reality. We're in first place, okay? First place. That's where you're at. So let's go forward from here, and that's what it is. Whether we have a chance, and that's all I can ask for in this world.
That one sack.
So there's Whipple on the lay of the land. Last I hear from Whipple, Mitch Sherman's coming up. When it comes to the West being competitive, it's open, it's competitive. Is it dominant? And right now, you don't see a dominant team. No one seems like your counterpart over in the East, like an Ohio State or a Michigan.
It's competitive. I don't know if it's quality, but it's competitive. It doesn't matter, right? Numbers are numbers. You can play them any way you want. It's like, hey, the schedule ahead of us is we're in great shape. We're in great shape. That was the goal. What I said to him when I got here is to win the West and get to Indianapolis.
Well, hey, that is the goal, and it is absolutely wide open. A year ago, the West had a handful of 9-win teams, 8-win teams. It was just brutal. As your division champ had one win. Nebraska had one win. Everybody else, Illinois was damn near bowl eligible. Wisconsin was a 9-win football team. So was Purdue. Iowa, I think, won 10 ball games, went to the Big Ten championship game. It's not that this year. Mitch Sherman's with us from the Athletic. Hail Varsity continues. We're presented by Currency.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Mitch Sherman will be with us here in about 15 minutes. We'll get caught up with him. He's finishing up an assignment, but Mitch with us typically at 4:25 as he is with the Athletic, and we'll spend some time. We have some comments here on the StreamYard from Brennan. Let's put this into perspective. If we were Saban's team, would guys who are not performing at the expectation level still be playing? No.
Well, yeah, simply put, no, but let's also understand that Saban's probably got a little bit more.
Saban's backup is still going to the NFL.
Exactly.
Right. So
the starter's probably going to be a Pro Bowler. The backup's just going to be like a special teams guy in the NFL, but he's still getting drafted.
Well, you have Matt chime in as well when it comes to Casey holding the ball too long at times. Also, when he has an open field, he needs to take off. That's what I'm wondering about with Casey Thompson. He's a guy that is ultra tough. What's the narrative? What is the directive by the Nebraska offensive coaches? Are they allowing him to run? They are inside the 5, right? And you need that threat of the quarterback run game in the red zone, because Nebraska's offensive line, while better at run blocking, still not dominant at run blocking. It's what they are. So if you have a 1-2 punch with the quarterback run and Grant or Yant, that helps things up. Offset with where a defense can key, and you've been really, really good. You've been 80% in the red zone when it comes to touchdowns. You've been tremendous this season. That's been fixed. It needs to stay at a high level moving forward. But I'm interested here with Casey Thompson, to Matt's point. Can we see him scramble a little more? You saw him scramble a little bit more. I think he ran for a few more yards. He ran a little bit against North Dakota and against Georgia Southern. Didn't run much against Oklahoma. Ran for his life against Oklahoma, but didn't have any quarterback design runs. There's been an instance or two where it's been a called quarterback draw for him. He can move. He's mobile. I do like that they roll him in the pocket. They started doing that in the second half against Indiana. You'll need to have him on the move, quite honestly, the rest of the season with some of the defenses they're going to face. Even if Nebraska's offensive line gets better, it's still not the 5 levels of visa protection. So will he take off? Will he be allowed to take off? I hope they let him do more than the occasional quarterback keep inside the 5. The rest of the field is open, and if there is some more run-pass option with him, because Purdy did it against Oklahoma, right? He's a guy that was able to tuck and run, and they were using him in his athleticism. I think Casey's got quite a bit of athleticism. He's just not as big as a guy as Purdy.
Well, let's go back and look at what he did at Texas. And I know it's a different offense, but it's the same guy. He wasn't the type of guy that was going to be seeing man coverage and scrambling and picking up 15 yards at Texas either. I mean, if there was one thing that was a negative, I mentioned this preseason from his playing days at Texas, is he did have a tendency to hold onto the ball a little bit long at times, keep his eyes downfield, and take a sack that killed the drive. That was the one thing I saw in my film review of Casey Thompson that gave me a little bit of pause. But I think it's not about trying to change who a guy is, especially this deep into your college career. It's about scheming up. And
what can he do?
Scheming up and knowing what his deficiencies are and planning around that. You know that this guy, he is going to keep his eyes downfield. He's going to take the occasional sack.
He'll hit a play downfield. I mean, look at the play against Northwestern, right? Where he's running for his life, rolling out, looks dead in the water, and then hits a big one for 60-plus yards. But the thing I do like, though, about Casey is how he'll hang in the pocket and step up in the pocket and make a throw, but he's just got to have time. He's got to have time to do it. That's a work in progress. Mitch Sherman going to be with us here, and then Coach Jim Walden next hour. Who's with us?
We've got Jaden on the line.
Jaden, thanks for calling. Welcome into Hail Varsity.
Hey, Schmidty, how's it going?
Good, brother. What do you know?
Hey, I just think we need to be talking more. I know it's still early, but the turnaround of getting Mickey Joseph and Bill Busch maybe into some full-time roles. I know the coaching search is still going, but, I mean, with the turnaround in 2 weeks, I'd be amazed to see what they could do with an off-season and a fall camp and spring ball, and they're obviously both good recruiters, so I think I think we should be talking more about that.
We haven't totally got into, the coaching carousel today. It's been a topic for sure, Jaden, the last 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
And it is an audition, and you feel good right now as a Nebraska fan that Mickey delivered a win, that Busch delivered a win, that this team responded with the bye week. You're going to have an opportunity Friday night, not going to be easy, but I think Mickey's going to make a case. Absolutely, he'll make a case because of his mentality. He's going to get the kids to play tougher, I think. I think Busch is getting kids to play confident. You look at Ty Robinson, case in point. We're going to hear from Bill Busch here in a little bit. No, I'm not writing off Mickey at all. I'm just keeping an open mind that Trev will do a national search. And the one thing I don't think about Trev is very calculated, and that's a compliment. He's not going to get caught up emotionally, right? It's not going to be sentimental. His sentimental feelings is towards the football program, not one dude that's in the air quote interim role right now. He's looking big picture, year 2, year 3, year 5, year 10, however long he's here, and what's the best big picture for Nebraska, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I just love the mindset shift they've gotten established here in the first couple of weeks. So I think it'd be awesome to see that going forward.
Hey, it's a football team for sure. Their shift in mentality. Jen, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate it. 466-3776 or 800-825-5865. You want to chime in?
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. Trev has got nothing but time here to make the right decision. The one thing you don't want to do whenever you have 3 months, that's how much time you gave yourself. You would assume this thing's got to be wrapped up probably in mid-December. I think even if Mickey Joseph makes a bowl game, I think you have to have the decision made whether or not you want to keep him or not before that bowl game is played. I think Trev's got until about mid-December to get this thing right, which gives yourself 3 months. The one thing you don't want to do when you have 3 months is to be too hasty. You don't want to be the guy that's making the hasty decision, wow, we got one great performance from Mickey. And I'm not saying that Mickey shouldn't be in contention here. He made a strong case for me on Saturday as well. But it was only the first step, only the first test. Mm-hmm. He's got 6 more tests upcoming.
You have the rest of the season.
The rest of the season, yeah. I mean,
well, and what Nebraska can't do, and this was brought up by Tom Chattel, this was brought up by Mike Farrell of CBS, you cannot gamble and be wrong with this next hire. And you can get a strong case made by Mickey Joseph and this current staff that you're not gambling. The attention to detail, the way they practice, the mentality, all those things moving forward can win you a lot of Big Ten games and climb you out of the cellar with what Mickey has done. And from a recruiting standpoint, he can get you the dudes that can go and get plays done, the Trey Palmers of the world, right? What Wisconsin just did is a gamble, okay? What they know and what they've had was 8-4, 9-4, decent. Was it outstanding? No. Was it very, very solid? Is it a program that Nebraska wishes they had right now? Absolutely. And a lot of programs wish they had it. Wisconsin and McIntosh gambled to give Leonard a look before he may leave, or he may get it, or for them to get into the sweepstakes of Aranda or Leipold, both guys with Wisconsin connections. Who's with us?
We've got Dave on the line.
Dave, thanks for calling. Go ahead, bud. Dave, you're on with us. Go for it.
I love you guys. I just wanted to mention, I know you haven't got to the Bill Busch interview yet. I listened to it earlier today. The one encouraging thing that I find from Coach Busch is you talked about making adjustments. And it felt like and Coach Chenander, he's a great guy, did really well during his tenure, except for, let's face it, this year. But the fact that Bill talked about making adjustments, seeing what was going on, same thing with Whip. I mean, let's face it, sometimes you need Dad to kick you in the backside to keep you in line. I think between Busch and Whip and Coach Joseph, I think we finally have some coaches that are willing to be the bad guy to bring out the good in some of these guys. I'll hang up and let you guys go, but I love you.
Dave, appreciate you listening, man. Thanks so much for your time. No, and that's just it. Let me ask you this. Elijah, you're way younger than I am.
Okay.
And I had a couple of friends in high school that their parents were their friends, right? And then, like, my dad was willing and good at correcting, okay? And that's what you need when you're a snot-nosed 17-year-old and you think you know it all. Some of my buddies that didn't have that, there's some choices, right, that they've made that they wish they could have back. Mm-hmm. And it comes down to leadership and who's being the parent, who's the adult in the room. And you feel like you absolutely have some adults in the room with Whipple. You got a grandfather in the room, right? And you know, if I'm gonna compare Whipple to a grandfather, he's Burgess Meredith and what's the grumpy old man? Okay, he's Burgess Meredith. He's that grandpa. Busch and Mickey, in their own way, are going to challenge guys and find out how to challenge them and coach them up through one game. But it feels different because of the mentality. And you might not like hearing what they're going to say, but do you want to win? And so far through one game and a bye week, okay, all this stuff they're throwing at me, it's getting me prepared to be our best. And I think kids will be willing to take a few tongue lashings or getting called out if they're going to win. Because, as Coach McBride said, I think they like the taste of winning.
That they do.
And they haven't had it a lot, right? It's Will Ferrell. That once that beer hits your lips, it's so good.
I can get behind. I like the taste of winning, too. I'm a big fan.
It's better than the alternative, and the alternative's been going on. Okay, we'll try and run it Mitch Sherman. Thoughts from Bill Busch. Jim Walden coming up.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Mitch Sherman's with us from The Athletic at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Mitch, what'd you think of Whipple today? Thanks for the time.
Well, I'm happy that, and I hope it stays this way for the rest of the year, and I think it will. We're getting like raw, uncut Mark Whipple. This is like Mark Whipple in his basement with a beer in one hand, watching college football and just talking about it. That's how it feels on Tuesdays, and it's gotten more and more like that. Really from the first time we met Mark Whipple. I mean, I'm not gonna lie about this. It was like that from the beginning, but now that we're into a season, I feel like it's even more. He was in rare form today.
What did Saturday show you moving forward? If you're going to apply it to not only Friday but beyond, Nebraska's always been a tough team to predict, but do they seem a little more solid based on what you saw Saturday?
Well, think back a year ago, and Nebraska was on a slide at the beginning of the year, and then the same week came the Northwestern game, and it looked a lot better than we saw on Saturday night against Indiana, 56-7, and we were probably talking on the Tuesday after that game about how is this the one that has righted the ship, and hey, Northwestern's coming off of a Big Ten West championship the year before, so this is looking up. So I would hesitate to read too much into one game. I want to see another one. If Nebraska can be on a 2-game winning streak when it goes to Purdue next week, then I'll be intrigued from a number of standpoints. First and foremost, for the big picture importance of the program because of what it could mean for Mickey Joseph's candidacy for the full-time position. We've known from the beginning that he was fighting an uphill battle, in part because he's the interim and he hasn't been a head coach. And, Trev Alberts is going to want somebody who's seasoned in this role. But what if, Mickey Joseph shows that he has the intangibles that they're looking for? And what if that this roster becomes galvanized under him and Nebraska's a different team in November than it was in the middle of September? Then you're having a different conversation. And what if some of the candidates that Nebraska potentially is looking at don't end up being interested or go to other schools? So, it continues to just be such a fluid situation. The big thing about Saturday night, aside from what I said, is just that Nebraska pulled it out in the fourth quarter. And, that's something that we can't say about any game against a Big Ten team, going all the way back to 2020. Maybe that Rutgers game in 2020 when Nebraska dominated statistically, but had to find a way to win in the second half. So it didn't happen at all last year. The one game that they won, it was a blowout. And then, of course, it hasn't happened this year until Saturday. So that's, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think that Mickey Joseph and Bill Busch and this reshaped coaching staff has a lot to do with starting to build confidence in those guys. And it showed when it mattered in that game.
Now, Mitch, I know you said you don't want to read too far into one game, but I'm just going to dive into it just a little bit here. As you talked about the fourth quarter, it really looked like Nebraska wore down that Indiana defense with their rushing attack. And I remember another coach sitting in his basement with a beer in hand saying that Mark Whipple didn't like running the football, but Nebraska ran the ball 51 times on Saturday night. Do you think that could be a recipe for success moving forward, or is that just Nebraska imposing their will on an Indiana front seven that wasn't as physical as Nebraska's offensive line? We've seen Nebraska's offensive line get out physicaled, so I just want to know if you think that's a recipe for success moving forward, if that's just a one-game aberration.
Well, it's not the best rush defense that Nebraska is going to see the rest of the way. I can tell you that. That's not Indiana's strength, is going toe-to-toe in the trenches. But it's still a Big Ten team. And, there's something about the mindset that Nebraska has to have in order to have any chance at all to make that kind of play work. So it's good to get off on the right foot and do it at the start of that quest against a team that isn't the best at defending that kind of a thing. Mickey Joseph went into that game, and, I watched him in pregame warm-ups getting down and dirty and really animated as he worked with and watched the linemen on both sides of the ball. So, and then he made the comment in pregame on BTN about the most physical team is going to win this game. He wanted Nebraska to be the most physical team. And he said it again. He repeated it after the game, and he thought like Nebraska did finally win that battle. And that's going to get more difficult with each passing week. Part of that, I think, is Nebraska was fresh coming off of the bye, and it wasn't a great opponent. But it's still a Big Ten team. So I don't know if that's the recipe that Nebraska can rely on. Look, Nebraska probably has a fourth quarter back in Anthony Grant, who's somebody who can pound and who can get yards in times where they need to maybe run the 4-minute offense or run out the clock, want to end the game with the ball. He's more talented at that than backs that Nebraska's had for several years, but it takes more than him. They've got to continue to improve play out of the line, and I don't think this is a team that can just lean on opponents for the rest of the way. They're going to have to rely on guys like Trey Palmer and Travis Vokolek to move the chains, and then they can start to go to the run game.
Mitch, I've got about 2.5 minutes before a hard out, so real quick, what do you think of the Rutgers matchup? And Nebraska has some momentum going in, but what strikes you about Rutgers?
Well, I talked a little bit to Bill Busch today about Vedral, and he knows that family well. Knows Mike Vedral, Noah's dad, and has been around them and just understands the toughness that comes with Noah. And if Noah's back, I know he's been in and out of the lineup this year, but if he's back, he's going to have a lot of motivation to play well against Nebraska in his final year of college. Not that he has anything against those guys, but it's a competitive thing. It's his former program, and I think you're going to see him give a lot in that game and not go down easy, and that should feed over. He's one of the older guys on that roster, so I think it'll feed over to his teammates. And Rutgers is not a pushover. You see the score against Ohio State last weekend, and it doesn't look pretty, but Rutgers was playing hard in the second half of that game and has played hard, and those are the traits of a Greg Schiano coach team. So I think it's going to be different than what Nebraska experienced when it went to Rutgers at the end of the 2020 season, and really outmatched physically that team. I think the gap has closed between these two programs, and you'll see that on display.
Mitch, about a minute, your thoughts, and if we need to carry over for a couple of minutes, we can, but what did the Wisconsin move say to you?
It says that Wisconsin doesn't want to lose Jim Leonard, and they want to give him every opportunity to get this job and not allow somebody else to swoop in and get him. They see that things are spinning in the wrong direction under Paul Chryst. They're 2-3. They're 0-2 in the Big Ten. Haven't been competitive the past 2 weeks, and that's not Wisconsin football. So they have a guy and a 39-year-old defensive coordinator that they want to give every opportunity to be the next head coach. And maybe the ideal plan was for him to take that job when he was 43 or 44 years old, but that's not the way that it was evident that it wasn't going to work that way. And then he may have emerged as a candidate this year for schools that had openings. So Wisconsin said, we're going to get ahead of this thing, give him a 7-game tryout right now, and hopefully it works out and they can just slide him into that role. So, that's the number one thing that it says to me about what Chris McIntosh and Wisconsin did up there on Sunday.
Mitch Sherman. Mitch, can I have a couple minutes on the other side? Is that all right with you?
Yeah, that works.
All right. Mitch Sherman, more with Mitch coming up. Hail Varsity will wind down this first hour. Jim Walden coming up. His take on the Big Red. Hail Varsity is presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you at Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Mitch Sherman, kind enough to give us some overtime here at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Find him and read him with The Athletic. Mitch, know you're keeping an eye on the coaching carousel, and with Wisconsin now in the interim stage, same with Nebraska. When it comes to some of the candidates, and 2 of the 3 we've talked about, Leopold and Aranda, have Wisconsin connections. You also have Matt Campbell. What do you think of the head-to-head here for the job, Nebraska v. Wisconsin, when it comes to interest and the ability for a candidate to say, all right, I'm going to pick this job over the other?
Well, as I said before, I think that Wisconsin's plan is to give Jim Leonard, the interim, every opportunity to get this job. Right. The grand plan at Wisconsin is for him to be the head coach there at some point, and they've accelerated the process, at least as far as his tryout. Maybe they envision that his tryout might come as a smaller school head coach, and then he could come back after a couple years when Chris was ready to step down. But that all got changed here in the last few weeks, and now instead of him going to a Power 5 school and potentially never coming back, they want him to maybe slide right into that role. So if that works out and you see Wisconsin turn it around, and the schedule turns a little favorable for the Badgers these next couple of weeks with Northwestern and Michigan State, maybe they can get some confidence, like perhaps we're starting to see from Nebraska. then Leonard is the coach, and it doesn't impact Nebraska at all because, of course, Wisconsin's not in the market to start a domino effect. But, yeah, if it goes any other way, I think they're going to be looking at similar guys. Leipold makes a lot of sense to be considered for both schools. If Aranda has any interest at all in leaving Baylor, if he wants to get to the Big Ten, sees that as a destination for him, I think then he would consider talking to both ADs. It could be a really interesting storyline in a few weeks, but we got to watch what Wisconsin does here with Leonard as the interim coach before you really get any kind of a sense at all if they're even going to be in the market for other candidates.
Mitch Sherman with us on Hail Varsity. Mitch, safe trip back east, and we'll check in again soon. Thanks for your time today.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
There he is, Mitch Sherman with us. Hail Varsity Radio at Mitch Sherman on Twitter with The Athletic. And there's something to think about because that is a reality, right? I mean, it's okay, say the interims don't win the job. You got to continue to go with that national search. Todd emails in, so we're world beaters somehow now, huh? LOL. Were these coaches bound and gagged prior and had no voice, but now are free to do their jobs? I'm confused. Plus, we very easily could have lost to Indiana. Todd, I think it's as simple as this. You have a new head voice. You have a new defensive voice. This is what they think is best. This is what they coach the kids to do. This is what the kids went out and executed, and boom, they won. You had 2 weeks of Mickey being real, but also 2 weeks of Mickey and Busch being real, but also building up, trying to pump in confidence, getting them ready. There's your difference the last 2 weeks.
Before we get out of here, can I just clear up one thing? I'm seeing some comments in on the StreamYard. I just want to say, Brennan is not Clausburn.
No.
Even if he was, I wouldn't tell you, but...
Clausburn's imaginary and he wears red. Jim Walden wore a lot of red. He's up next on Hail Varsity.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Hour 2 at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. The gentleman, the gunslinger from Mississippi and longtime coach with Coach Devaney, head coach at Iowa State and Washington State. We say hi to Jim Walden. Coach, how's it going?
Well, it's going just great. Couldn't be better. The weather is just outstanding, as it probably is in the Midwest. We've got a beautiful fall weather out here in Idaho, and the Cougars are doing well. And so all the fun things that college football brings to us, Schmidty, is all here.
Well, things are getting packed up to head to New Jersey for a Friday night game. But your takeaway so far, we were talking a little bit off air, and this season's felt like 2 or 3 seasons, the way things started in Ireland and the changes that happened. And Mickey and Bill Busch and the rest of the staff and the kids really responded well Saturday night.
Well, as I told you, I think the best thing for Mickey was that he had an open date. It gave him 2 weeks to kind of get the players back on the page, maybe some to stop feeling sorry for themselves that they didn't do better, to help Scott, to try to get them through the process, to say, look, we got to set that all aside for the time being. You can worry about that when the season's over, but for right now, we got to look forward to what we've got. It's not going to change. I'm here. I'm going to do the best job I know how to do, and explain himself to them and the staff's changes. And so I think it was a wonderful break for Nebraska and Mickey Joseph that they had that open date.
Jim Walden with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Nebraska had to lick some wounds after Oklahoma really played their best football game of the season. They've gone a different direction since playing Nebraska in Lincoln. But this team has, as Mickey said Monday, bought in on being physical, and it's been a different approach, or maybe more of a stern approach, Coach Walden, with how Mickey's running things, more, dare I say, tackling in practice, a lot of accountability, and that's the first thing Mickey said in his postgame against Oklahoma. It's on me. He took responsibility and ownership, and even Saturday night, if you're not performing, guys are actually getting pulled for the first time in a while. There's not been a lot of benching that's happened in Lincoln here the last few years.
Well, all that sounds like it used to be. What you just said, I'm thinking, when did that go out? I don't identify with the other side of whatever it is that used to be at Nebraska. And I'm not saying this to be facetious. What you just explained that Mickey Joseph is doing, I'm sorry, but when I left coaching, that was the expected. That was the norm. And if kids don't do what they're supposed to do to hold up their end of the bargain for the team, they come out of the game. That's been going on for 100 years, and if you think you're too big for that, then that's on the coach. And to me, the only way you ever get the attention of all the people that you're coaching is that they all know there is no one above the coach, and the coach meaning the assignment, what we're supposed to do, what we have to do. We can't just stay out here and let some guy do what he wants to do and then let the rest of us down. So that was good news to my ears.
Well, it showed up on the practice field, and it showed up at least through one game. But have you ever been through anything that Nebraska's been through this season in your career, either as an assistant or as a head coach, with so much transition?
Well, no, because we didn't have the portal.
Right.
I've been through some seasons where we didn't have very good talent, but what we had was our fault, or what we had we found, and I never had a group that I thought didn't play the hardest they could. I used to say, a cat's very strong and will fight hard, but he'll never beat the lion. And so that's the way it is sometimes. You have kids that will give you everything they got. They just don't have much. And that's a long season when you run into that. But with all the stuff that's happened in the last 12 months, so to speak, at Nebraska, with the coming and the going, and there's a lot of people that would normally say, well, you feel sorry for Scott Frost. I go, hey, he made $35 million not to succeed. I'm sorry. I don't have a lot of – I don't feel bad about him, but I don't feel sorry for him. And besides that, you're paid to turn and make results. No, make no bones about it. When I got into coaching, I understood the backside rule. Win, work your butt off, do the best you can with every team you have, and let the people make decisions on that. And the only firing that I've seen so far, I'll change the subject just a little bit to say, on the basis of Scott, I got no problem. On the basis of the coach at Wisconsin, here's what I would have done if I would have been the president of Wisconsin. When the AD came in and told me that he wants to fire a guy that's 79 and 27 or something like that, I would have said to him, well, you're the AD. You know what's best for the athletic department. I'm going to let you make that decision. But tomorrow I'm going to make a decision that I'm going to do what I think is best for the athletic department, and I'm going to fire you. And then you kind of wondered if they would have fired his mind slips his mind right now. But
Paul Christ.
Chris, yeah. You just wonder if the AD would have had the same conviction to fire Paul Christ if the president had told him that.
Well, Jim, do you think this is kind of the natural progression of college football towards what the NFL does? You see a lot more mid-season firings in the NFL, kind of that mantra that every season's important and no season's lost this early. And now you've already seen 5 Power 5 head coaches let go so far this season. Do you think this is the natural progression of college football towards what the NFL does with their pro model, and this might be the standard moving forward?
Without a doubt. Once it starts, you're not going to get it stopped. The ADs and the presidents at this point all believe that their coaches are making compared to what I made, it's not even on the charts how bad. There was a time when you didn't fire a coach making $102,000 or $72,000, or probably Bob Devaney's salary of $35,000 when he was there. But nobody was that heartless. You'd have said, "Hey, we'll get to this when the season's over. Run the course and blah blah blah." You stuck with it, for bad or for worse. But when you're making $3 to $5 to $8 to $11 million a year, they have no compassion to keep you. If the program's terrible and it's going downhill, and it doesn't look any better than, say, Nebraska's was looking over the last 5 years, it's time to make a change, get on with it, and that's the new trend. And that's what money does. And don't feel sorry for any of these coaches. I saw where the least amount was being paid to one of them may have been Carl Morrell at Colorado, and he's making $9 million. He's going to get a $9 million check. So I'm sorry. I don't feel too sad for him.
I get a kick out of Coach Orgeron. I was at a touchdown club in Little Rock. This is about a month ago, Coach Walden, and old Coach O's like, "Well, you're going to give me a $17 million check, huh? Well, what door you want me to leave and what time do you want me to leave?" It's what Orgeron said.
Yeah, I mean, Schmidty, you'll get a kick out of this. About 5 years ago, I thought about trying to get somebody to recommend me for one Division I job and pay me $3 million a year for a 5-year contract if you would guarantee you'd fire me after 1 year.
You were to take one for the team, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I'll come in and I'll organize them, and I'll have the cheering section. I'll get them do all the portals and get everybody lined up. And then we'll go through a season, come hell or high water. I don't care what the record will be. But come December, I want you to pick up the check for my rest of my $15 million. So that's how
well,
because I could have used the money. If Barry Alvarez had still been at Wisconsin, I'd have called him. But he wasn't the AD anymore, so I didn't call him.
Well, Nebraska's been pretty good about doing that the last 20.
Well, they paid a lot of money for guys not to coach. And I hope, in my heart, I hope they'll give Mickey every chance. Mm-hmm. He's got it. He's got a chance now to do an on-the-job interview, if you want to call it that. He's got a half a season now to show people that he can be what he was when he was there as a player. He can do it as a coach. I'm pulling hard for him. But if that's not the case, then they need to take full time. And then whatever you do, don't go to the top 5 teams in the nation and think you got to hire one of their assistants. I know he didn't pan out from Central Florida, but doggone it, don't overlook quality coaches that are head coaches someplace else instead of. I know the guy at Georgia has done a great job. He was with Nick for 7 or 8 years. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying don't overlook quality head coaches that have proven records. And I look at Kansas right now and I think, boy, that was a nice hire.
Well, and I want to ask you about the Kansas job and the Iowa State job, right? Coach Campbell's had his name swirl about some big-time jobs, and he's on the short list, right? National search, you've seen the names of Leipold at Kansas and, of course, Campbell from Iowa State, O'Brien down at Bama under Saban. Those are really the names, Fickle. I mean, there's like a wish list, and then there's reality. And the reality feels like today, Coach Walden, what's your take on this? I mean, today, Lance Leipold says, I'm happy at Kansas, kind of putting out the Wisconsin rumors, because now he's a native Wisconsinite. But I didn't think I'd see a day where a coach would choose to stay at Iowa State or Kansas, and the football world's different. Nebraska's not what they've been. I totally get it. But coaches are content, and they're making a ton of money, and they've already built. Why go build somewhere else? That's kind of the feel right now in comparison to the Nebraska opening.
No doubt about it. And they're not going to leave, especially the Kansas guy. No. Right now, there's no man in the state of Kansas. Even the basketball coach who won a national championship is not as popular as the head coach in Kansas football is right now. And so you don't walk away from that for $1 more million back to a program that's not what they were when Tom Osborne walked away. What the fans at Nebraska have to come to grips with, for all of us that's sitting outside that still loves them, is they're not anywhere near what they were in 1990 to somewhere into that range. It has gone down a long way to a point where if you're getting it done at Kansas and you're doing well at Iowa State and have done well since you've been there, no, you've not won a national championship. No, you've not won a conference championship, but neither has Nebraska. But you have the love of the people that you're working for, and that's hard to walk away from, Schmidty. And so I don't see you can go talk to him, but in my heart, knowing what I know about Campbell, and I don't know Leopold, but I will tell you right now, your chances of getting either one of them are 10%.
Coach Jim Walden is with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And, Coach, it's a tough gig, Nebraska, and I think that's the main sticking point for these coaches, why they might want to stick at their jobs, as Schmidty said, is it's not what it used to be. So I want to ask you the question. I'm going to put you on the spot here just a little bit. If Trev Alberts gave you a call and said, Coach Jim, we need you here at Nebraska. We need you to handle this rebuild. What would a few steps in your rebuild of Nebraska look like?
Well, I first have to evaluate the state and kind of go back to when Coach Devaney and when Tom had it and Frankie had it. And by the way, if you go back and check history, that's when it all went downhill, and it hadn't been back since. So that's the starting point. But I would have to see what's happening with the athletes in Nebraska. When I was there, we got everybody that we thought was possible. Then we did a great job recruiting California junior colleges and the state in the back east. Monty did a great job in New Jersey. We got some great athletes out of that area. But the keynote for all of us at that time, now I know times change, but I wanted to know how could we get to good Omaha and surrounding areas. Are we going to get the top 10 kids in Nebraska like we did? And then do you have a solid walk-on program that you can build to that? Bring that top 20, what they call the recruited walk-ons, and see where that is. Because, guys, when I was there, and I think all through Tom's years, we never had a bad recruiting year. You go get the 20, 22 kids you could in someone else's area, and then you always had the 7 or 8 top-notch kids in Nebraska. But what really covered for us was if we missed on a half a dozen kids outside of Nebraska, the walk-ons always covered for us. We always were never shocked to find that about 6 or 8 of the guys that we had not scholarship turned out to be really good players. That has to happen if Nebraska is going to go forward. They have to do that. They've got to control the best athletes, the top 30 athletes in Nebraska. They have to get down to the university.
Jim Walden with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Coach Walden, long time at Iowa State, Washington State, assisted for Bob Devaney, worked with Monty Kiffin. His take on the Big Red. We'll talk coaching search with him. A reminder about Red Zone tickets selling fun since 2001. Do you have seats you want to get rid of? Seats you want to go? And buy to the NFL, to Creighton Hoops. How about Nebraska football, Husker volleyball, the College World Series, all the concerts you want to be at? It's Red Zone Tickets, redzonetickets.com, and they are local. They are folks from Omaha with an A+ Better Business Bureau rating, a local source. And get logged on today, 100% guarantee. Redzonetickets.com is where you go to get the seats you want to be at.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Jim Walden's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, you know the Kiffin family well. What's your thought on Lane down at Ole Miss? Do you think he's lifelong at Ole Miss, or do you think Lane might have a wandering eye? He was on Twitter just a week and a half ago, and they had a nice win against Kentucky. Lane's done a great job, but he was letting the student section know that it shouldn't be empty for a top 10 team.
Well, knowing Lane and the decisions he's made, and I used to tease Monty about this, I said, well, I know one thing. He's not to chip off your block. I mean, Monty and his son are two totally different people. Lane is maybe he's more like Robin. He thinks independent of himself. So don't ever try to outthink Lane Kiffin in a sense of what he will do. So the answer to that is, if Lane Kiffin thought that Nebraska offered him a better opportunity, one thing I know he'll know, Whatever's at Nebraska is 75,000. You can tell me. I don't know. I think it's about 75, 80,000. Well, that's exactly how many is going to be there. So he doesn't have to worry about the student section not being full. So if that has an impact, don't think for 1 minute that Lane Kiffin, and I'll tell you something else, don't think for 1 minute it wouldn't be a great choice. My feeling about him is he might be the brightest. He might have the brightest offensive mind in terms of how he does things, where he moves people. I love him, and it's not because of his dad. I just have to think professionally, Monty Kiffin is one of the brightest lights on the tree when it comes to ingenious offense.
Jim Walden with us. Coach, real quick, Pac-12, what's it look like to you this year? Also the Big 12. You got a winner for me in the league at this point?
Well, I'm going to go with Okie State back there, although TCU just stunned me. But it seems to me like, Schmidty, that Okie State seems to have all the parts they need when they need them. And until this, I'm interested in the Texas OU game. This is a big game for a lot of reasons this weekend, Schmidty. That's one of those two teams is going to get shoved over in the corner. So I really think right now Okie State is the answer there. And I think out here, I don't think anybody's better than Utah. They are strong on both sides of the ball. They're well coached. And Oregon is good, but it was an embarrassment they put on. I mean, I'd like to say they're a really good team, and I watched them barely beat Washington State, and it was barely by a couple of bad calls, if you don't know the truth, that they've admitted to. But if they're only 3 points better than Washington State, who I think at best is a top 25 maybe, they might win 8 games this year, and that's wonderful. But when you only beat a team that's no better than 8 wins, you're not in the hunt. And when you lose to the number one team in the nation at the time, 49-3, you're off the board. So it's Utah and Okie State for me.
Big Ten West is wide open. We've spent plenty of time in Nebraska after all this. To circle back as we ended here, is tied for first, and yeah, right, and good for them, and they have an opportunity, and I think they have some belief now. But this West is just wild, Coach. I mean, Iowa, I think will get better, but their offense is a problem. Old Bielema and Illinois look pretty tough. Minnesota has been a mess. At least they were last Saturday. But do you keep an eye much on the West at all?
Yeah, and one of the things is not only do I keep an eye on it, I made a few dollar bet last week on Minnesota in the over. They were averaging 30-something points. Purdue was averaging about 20. So I figured that's about a 65-point game. So he explained to me how all of a sudden Minnesota, who's averaging a good 35, 38 points a game, you can play Purdue and score 10 points. Is it just because I bet on them, Schmidty? Is that the reason? I don't think
Ibrahim played. I don't think their stud running back played. That would have been useful information for you.
I'm going to call you next time when I get ready to bet on one of those West Side Big Ten teams. I need the info. But right now, I'd say the unluckiest one is the one that wins the division because they'll have to play either Ohio State or Michigan. So they may not want to win the division over there.
That's pretty good. Well, I'll be here with the bat line ready for the overs or unders. Coach Jim Walden. Coach, we love you. We appreciate your time, and thanks for giving us a few minutes today.
No problem, man. I love you. I love the folks in Nebraska. So have a good weekend. Win one.
Yeah, that'd be good. Out in New Jersey. Take care, Coach.
You bet. Goodbye.
Old Jim Walden leaning on me for over-under predictions. That is a scary, scary thought. I love that. Coaches, you're not supposed to predict the weather, right? Typically. And he's like, man, I bet the over Purdue and Minnesota, and I got bit. But pretty good insight. Always good insight from Jim Walden, man.
He's a former coach. I think the best bit of insight he could give was right there at the end, and that's when in doubt, always bet the over. It's a lot more fun to root for points.
Oh, completely fun to root for points.
But maybe not in the Big Ten.
The West is going to turn into 17-13.
Yeah, better betting advice probably for this year is just avoid the Big Ten West as a whole. We'll have to talk to Danny about that on Thursday.
Yeah, we will for sure get in with our friend from VSiN Sports. Let's talk with Bill Busch as Coach Busch spent some time after the ball game, after practice today, rather, and he laid it out. First and foremost, right? You label it and you emphasize it. You emphasize something, you'll be good at it. Well, it's all about competition. And Bill Busch said, "Yep, today was Competition Tuesday."
Today was Competition Tuesday, and Coach Joseph's done a great job of having our guys ready to compete, and it was in every drill. We had good on good. We had special teams good on good. Everything was about competition, getting ourselves better, because we got a really a big man's fight this next Friday night, and so we did a great job with that. Again, just praise the coaches and Coach Joseph for the plan that we had put together to really get these guys in the right spot on this short week. So it's been really good. Kids have put in extreme amount of time extra on film, done as much as we can physically. It's a fine balance between how you're going to get these guys ready to play, to be have the knowledge of the schemes that they're going to see or have to defend, and also be fresh enough to be able to do that. But we've already talked about that. We're blocking out any noise. Don't care about that it's a road game and it's on the East Coast or any of those things. Just getting our guys ready to play. And they've responded extremely well. They're taking care of their bodies well. So very excited about them. So again, I'm just very lucky to have such good coaching staff and have such great players to be putting the work in every day. And it's been really good.
So more on that label of a big man's fight. Thoughts on Rutgers?
I know their staff well enough, know their head coach well enough. He's all about toughness, which everyone says, but you see it on film. So everybody says, you've got to be the toughest team on film. Everyone says it, right? But you turn their film on, that's who they are. And so they're very good up front. Their offensive line is big, thick, physical. I mean, they line up and they'll run power and physical power game action. They'll run wildcat. They'll run the quarterback, turns into 11-on-11 football, which is like option football. And so they ran the ball downhill really well against Ohio State in the second half. And so trust me, they got plenty of skill, and their quarterback's really good. It doesn't matter which one we see; they're all really good. But they want to be extremely tough at the line of scrimmage, and it shows up on film. So we have our hands full, and that's what we're preparing for to play.
A little bit more on Rutgers and Schiano from Bill Busch.
You know, I've never worked with him personally. I know him well enough through a lot of other people. And like I said, first of all, he understands the league really well. He understands the methodology of how to turn a program around, which he's done there before. And that was all done the same way. Because I know a lot of those players, and I worked with those guys when I was at Rutgers, his former players, and it was all about the grit. And so that's what he knows about this conference. And he's very impressive as a coach. Their whole staff is very impressive. And like I said, you just know what you're up against when you play them.
So Bill Busch was asked about Nebraska's defensive performance Saturday and, what allowed the defense to be successful. Under 300 yards total allowed, just 14 points allowed. What was it about him being the coordinator and Nebraska showing out Saturday?
Well, the thing that stood out from Saturday the most was our number one goal. We had two goals. Number one thing, get lined up and play fast, because there are so many clips on film of teams not lined up. I mean, there was, you saw against Cincinnati, they had a walk-in touchdown because they weren't lined up. It's all over the film. Sometimes there's 14 guys on the film. Sometimes there's 11 on the film, but only 4 of them were lined up. It's all over the place. So we went 100% in alignment of getting lined up, and we didn't have any like that. We did not say we played it perfect once we got there, but we got lined up on that. So that was the thing that transferred over, and then be able to get the calls in. And then we were able to, as the game went along, even though they were going fast, then we were able to call different things. But early in the game, we just went same a lot. So whatever the call was before, we called the same call again. And the kids, that I think, gave them a chance to breathe and get lined up instead of always, because the panic would always come if you're ever looking over to get a call and guess what's going on over here. They're lining up. So that was a part to try to get faster on. So
you say you were lined up right every time?
What's that?
You were lined up right every time?
Yeah, as far as our cleats were in the ground. There might be time like that. I'm sure maybe sometimes simply maybe saw the nickel inside or should have been outside or something like that. But our feet were in the ground. We never went through and just went, oh my God, we're not lined up. Number 2's not covered. 1's uncovered. The tight end, so they got lined up really well in that spot. And then, like I said, there's always maybe some shades or some things that could be better for us, but very happy with that. Let's go 96% simple. That way I don't get myself in a pickle if you find something.
More from Bill Busch, and how about Ty Robinson? Really good ball game, and you had Busch sit down with Matt Millen. We had Matt on last week, talked Big Red, and the conversation helped inspire Ty Saturday night.
Matt Millen did the game, so I talked with him a lot day before the game, and I talked to him a lot on game day. And he talked to me about Ty. He goes, it seems like he's very talented. He goes, there's probably more in him. So me and Ty sat down and talked about that exact comment with him. I said, and I go, he's right. I said, there's more in you at that, and he had more in him on Saturday. What he did was he always plays hard. There's not an issue with playing hard, but he made more plays, and that was the part that he finished some things up on that was good for him at that. So Ty has been one of the reasons that myself being able to transition into this role has been doable because of Ty, because he has been a leader. He's taken coaching, whatever that. He's not a palms up guy, and he's just all in. So that's helped us a lot.
So good stuff from Bill Busch, laying out the why, right? The defense was better Saturday. They'll need it Friday night. Again, we're on the road Friday at the Hale Varsity Club up in La Vista. Want to see you out. We're doing a show 4 to 6, and then get you right into kickoff. The usual suspects be with us Friday night. Elijah and I ready to rock and roll. Then the reaction show follows at the Hale Varsity Club. So be there with us. Get a cold beer, get a burger, get some Wagyu. If you're into salads, they've got plenty to choose from as well. You want wings? Tommy like wingy?
I'll be getting some wings.
I know you're going to get.
We're closing this place down.
Well, yeah, you're going to get wings, but are you? The more important question is you going umbrella drink?
I'm not getting a mojito this time. It was great. It tasted great, but that picture will live on forever.
You can't go umbrella drink if it's a game in Jersey. We'll hear from Travis Vokolek coming up.
And now, back to Hale Varsity Radio.
Back with you at Hale Varsity. We're presented by Currency. A few more thoughts from Bill Busch. Then my sit down with Husker tight end going back to Rutgers. Was part of the Rutgers program under Coach Ash. And now back to Jersey. But first, more from Bill Busch, and specifically why it looked like Nebraska's team played harder Saturday night on defense.
Probably a couple things to look at. One, came off a bye week, and so like that. So they had a chance to kind of flush things that were, some negative vibes for us right there. And they went out. I think that they felt really, really good about what we were doing every time. I don't think there was ever, when we were on the sidelines, we had very creative conversations as staff and with our players. If you watch us, we're always with our players. But most of it was talking about minute things. And it wasn't like this, and this happened. We got to change this. So they were so dialed into the calls and what we were doing and getting lined up. It just kind of puts you at ease, for us right there. And they just wanted to play. And so I think they were just very, very relaxed. And we just need to stay on top of that to be able to keep that going for us right now. And I know they will. They'll play really hard.
Last thought from Bill Busch before we talk to Travis Vokolek, the mood of the team here as they look to try and put 2 in a row together.
Pretty easy to say that they're extremely happy. That the locker room was great afterwards. I thought Coach Joseph and the kids did a great job of 24-hour rule of being able to enjoy it for a little bit. We moved on pretty quick, to the next phase because of where we were. But their spirit's been great. But again, it's been different this week. There's no doubt about that. But give these guys credit. I told you that last week. I said, wow. I said, these guys come in every time. There was never we never had to wind them up like we got to go, or never walked out of meetings saying man, that was like pulling teeth. That was, no one's talking. That was miserable. So that's what good humans they are. Now they're just a little bit happier humans.
So that's Bill Busch. Let's get into Travis Vokolek. Tight end, senior for Nebraska, headed back to New Jersey. The Rutgers transfer, looking for some East Coast pizza. Travis Vokolek with it. Night games, how was it, man? Congrats on the win.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely good to get a W this past weekend. Was a great game. I was really proud of how this team fought to the very end, and we've showed that we can finish games now. So guys understand that, and ready for this next week at Rutgers Friday night. Going to be a fun one.
Coach Joseph was talking about buying in to being physical, and when did you see that happen?
Yeah, in my opinion, I feel like we've been physical this whole year. Obviously, there's been some improvement, a need of improvement, I guess you could say, for the physicality on both sides of the ball and special teams as well. So, I've kind of seen it this whole year. I thought specifically during the Indiana game, it definitely showed, toughness and, the physicality. And, I was really happy with the outcome.
Let's spend a minute here on the offense. Tie ball game, 21 apiece. Things were scuffling, and then you take the roof off. Palmer gets deep for a touchdown, and then a 6-minute drive by the offense. Was it confident on the sidelines, even though it was tied? You touched on finishing close ball games, but did you have a feel this time? Yeah,
it's, in times in the past, when we've been in a situation like that, we haven't been able to finish. And, like you said, it was tied and no one blinked. I think that was awesome for the offensive side of the ball. And, we're a confident football team. We're coached, we do what we're coached to do. And, we just fall back on our technique and what we've been coached to do. And I think that showed when the ball game was tied. And like you mentioned, Trey and Casey had a great connection there, and we just took off from there. So it was a great way to finish a football game and get a W.
Travis Vokolek with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. What makes Casey a special quarterback?
Yeah, Casey is he's a great leader on and off the field. He knows the whole offense. He can throw the ball really well, can run as well. So he's a great leader, and he's not afraid to tell you how it is, which I really like about him, because sometimes you need that. But he's a great guy, and I'm really happy he's on our football team.
The first time he told you how it is, how was that interaction?
Yeah, there's things between a quarterback and a receiver, a tight end, and routes and stuff, and you can't take it personal. It's part of the football game. So, like I said, he's a great quarterback. I'm glad he's here, and I'm ready for this next week with him.
Well, the tight end's always the quarterback safety valve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, yeah. We got to continue that, so.
Tell me a little bit here about the prep here leading up to Rutgers. You know Rutgers well?
Yeah, I do.
You know Rutgers very well. Who did you commit to at Rutgers?
Chris Ash was the head coach out there. So yeah, like you mentioned, very familiar with Rutgers. Always a fun trip getting back out there. 2 years ago we were back out there during the COVID season and everything. So it was a little different. Ready to get back out there, back in Jersey. Ready to take on this Rutgers team.
So what are the spots in Piscataway? There's I'm sure a contingent of the Big Red Army heading out to the East Coast. Pizza's a specialty.
Yeah, I don't really remember exactly what the.
You're too busy.
Yeah,
working, right?
yeah. They've got some great pizza spots out there. That's something I do miss about the East Coast when I was out there. Is the pizza is so good, and the slices are giant. So you get 2 slices and you're full. But yeah, they got great food out there on the East Coast, and I'm sure for all the fans heading out there, you can just look up on your phone, and there's very popular spots out there you can find.
Last food question. We'll get back to football, but are you just a cheese guy? What toppings do you go with?
Yeah, I'm a big Supreme guy. Okay. So I like a little bit of everything. I love all types of pizza, but most of the time I get
the
Supreme.
Vokolek is what? What's on the Vokolek?
Man, we got sausage. I like black olives on my pizza. Yeah, so I know that's a lot of people are questionable on that. Sausage, black olives, that's usually my go-to, and then all the other stuff that goes on Supreme with the peppers and all that stuff. So,
mushroom.
Yeah, mushroom. I like everything.
Good work. Travis Vokolek with us, laying out a pizza pie topping. But tell me about the offense here and what makes it so dangerous. Not only the big plays, obviously, are pretty apparent, but just what you guys can lean on, I guess, the balance part of it.
Yeah. After watching the film for this past game, as an offense, we thought, we really had a couple of plays that, we could have scored on that we just, we missed one guy, missed a block, one guy didn't run the right route or didn't get his depth on the route and stuff like that. So we know, we know how good we can be. It's shown on film. There's just one job that needs to be finished on that specific play. So, fans have seen it. Everyone's seen it. We got, really explosive receivers. We got really good running backs. We got good quarterbacks. I feel like we've got all the weapons. So, when everyone does their job, good plays happen.
other side of the ball, you're prepping for the next series, of course, but from what you got to see, what did you think of the defense?
Yeah, I thought the defense played well. You see all the statistics and stuff like that. I thought they've done a really, really good job. Love those guys on the defensive side. Support them in everything they do. And, I think they continue to improve every week.
Confidence. You guys got a win last weekend. You head in on the momentum of a win, and what can that do moving forward before we say goodbye?
Yeah, everyone's saying, go with the momentum and stuff for their win. But, the way that we look at it is we want to be 1-0 every week. So we got the 24-hour rule. We enjoy the win while we can, learn from the film, learn from the mistakes, and then move on to the next game. So it's definitely nice to have a win, but, we're just trying to go 1-0 every week.
Travis Vokolek. Travis, good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, it's Hail Varsity, presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Jeff loved the Jim Walden show when he was growing up. Jim Walden with us this hour. Travis Vokolek. Big thanks to Mitch Sherman. Matt chimes in. Would Tony Soprano go with a red Italian wine for a game in Jersey? Tony Soprano can drink whatever he wants. God rest his soul. Love James Gandolfini. Reminder to get buckled up. Using your seatbelt saves lives, prevents injuries. Only if you properly wear it. Buckle up. This message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Nick Saban is getting into midseason mode, and he was asked earlier this week by a reporter about the packages, the Wildcat, the dual threat quarterback that's behind Bryce Young, if they're ready to unleash that against A&M this week.
You've talked about Jalen Merrill's unique skill set. Just given that, is there a thought of maybe putting a package together for him regardless of Bryce's injury status?
We already have one. So. Okay. Do you want us to put a new one together now just because he might play, or use the old one? I mean, we can do either one. I mean, I'll go talk to the offensive coaches and see.
About to use that more often then?
Again, I don't talk to Jimbo on a regular basis, but I'll call him and tell him right after the conference if you want me to. I mean, you guys think I'm going to tell you what we're going to do with our offense and our team? You might as well make it up. I saw today where there was headlines in the paper that, I'm going to keep it a secret what we're going to do with Bryce. It sounded like me making that statement, but I've never said that. But it was there in black and white, so you can make up whatever you want to make up. Look at somebody else's running quarterback and say they should put these plays in. I think that'd be a better way to do it.
I think somebody should have followed up that comment there with, so what are your plans with Bryce Young on Saturday? Is
Bryce going to play? How's his shoulder? What's the MRI look like? What do you think, Nick? He's in grip mode because he's got A&M coming in. They just got worked by the Pirate, who once again gave great marital advice, elope and save money. And then you have Tennessee looming. Now, Tennessee, I think, has to go to LSU this weekend.
Well, can we just really fast look back at where we're at 2 months ago? 2 months ago, we were looking at this date of these Saturday slated games saying, wow, Texas and Oklahoma, that's going to be awesome. And then you got Bama and Texas A&M. That was the preseason hype bowl with what was going on this offseason. Now college game day is going to Kansas.
Yeah, no kidding, because KU and TCU are unbeaten, and they're good stories. Who's the dude, the comedian that does the coach's commentary, like he's in the coach's meeting room? I love his, because Nebraska was the victim after Northwestern, but he did Oklahoma this past weekend, where the kid's running with his fist clenched.
Coach 30.
Yeah, Coach. Got to edit that a little bit, but that is so funny. That's great stuff. Evan Bland tomorrow, Mike Babcock, Mike Schuhart. Big thanks to Mitch Sherman and Coach Walden. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 4 with Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency.